Happy Friday to my basics bitches out there. This is Friday No Filter, where we unleash the rant on the basics of health. Each Friday, we tear down the glossy facade and dive headfirst into the nitty-gritty of what it takes to thrive in the chaos of modern health. No frills, no fluff, just straight talk about what matters. It's time to embrace the chaos on your own journey and give a big, bold middle finger to the status quo. Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of Don't Call Me Skinny. Excited to be here with you today. All right, if you did not hear Wednesday's podcast, I'm going to need you to go back and listen to that because it was good. It was fire. And I want you to know the whole reason I talked about my own experience is, you know, lately with these reels that I've been putting out there, lately with, about just like, trainers and coaches not looking shredded 24/7 and having fat on their body. And the fact that they're human, the fact that coaches are human beings. Like, I am not perfect. I don't try to be perfect. Obviously that's what my whole business is based off of, is being not perfect. It's just about continuing to show up. And that's something that I want to talk about today, is that even in the midst of everything, even in the midst of not wanting to track my food, even in the midst of, having this like kind of downward spiral, I'm still showing up. It's maybe not fully in alignment. It's maybe not as much as it needs to be. It's maybe not as much as I need to get the results that I want, but I'm still doing the thing. I never once, fell off, quote unquote, because that's what we love to say, going to the gym. I never once fell off, quote unquote, trying to make sure like I ate protein at every meal, even if I wasn't tracking my food, right? Now, there were a lot more days that I wasn't necessarily paying attention to the amount of food I was consuming, which is why I haven't gained weight, but I also haven't lost the fat that I desired to lose. And really it should be, I hadn't gained fat, but I'm slowly, thinning down a little bit. I don't want to say thinning. That's not the word. Just I'm slowly shedding the fat. That's just the layers of fat. That's just what it is. Scientifically, it's what it is. And so I want to be super clear that we as human beings are allowed to have rough patches, hard times, difficult things to move through, and we still get to show up as best as we can for ourselves, as whatever that looks like, whatever that might mean for you. In the moment, I felt that what I was doing was what I could do, and that was it. And I wasn't trying to push something else. I wasn't trying to force something else. I wasn't trying to make things mean things that they weren't. It was just like, this is where I can show up. This is as best as I can show up, and this is what I am able to give. So I'm going to give it. It's not permission to, quote unquote, throw in the towel. It's not permission to, we'll see, even her as a coach, she's not doing everything she should be doing. So I don't have to do everything. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is shit is hard. Life is hard. It is difficult. Change is difficult. Moving through things is difficult. It's hard. And trying to get your health in check during all those things, all those other things that are hard and difficult, it's harder. It's more difficult. I was going to say difficulter, but I thought I would spare you guys, but I said it anyway. So it's all hard. And we get to acknowledge that, but also not use it as a crutch. Use it as an excuse to completely just do nothing. Completely just have no sense of care, because it is so hard. And I truly believe that people who have a really hard time doing anything isn't because they don't care. I truly don't believe that. I do care about myself. I did want something different for myself for the last over a year at this point. It's not that I didn't care to do it. It was just like, I just couldn't make it happen. And as I talked about on Wednesday, the body's job is protect you. Now, I talked about going to this restaurant with my husband that I didn't really want to go to because for some reason it was making me all anxious and weird, and I don't know why. And we went, and you want to know what? It was fine. It was totally fine. I don't know what my problem was. I don't know what the issue was and why I felt so apprehensive and so anxious about it. But here's what I do know. I still went and did the thing. I was a little uncomfortable, but I gave myself an opportunity to teach my body. Sometimes we can do hard things. Sometimes we can do things that make us anxious and nervous. Sometimes it's okay to push through some of those feelings that we have instead of pausing. And I always talk about when to push, when to pause. I have to sneeze, so I apologize in advance. It's coming. I know it's coming. Excuse me. Okay. When to push and when to pause. That was a moment I needed to push. It really, truly was a moment. And at the very last minute, I tried to get out of it again where I told my husband, hey, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot is, I drove by them and that would be a kind of fun place to go if you want to go there instead. And he was like, do you not want to go? And I was like, well, I mean, not any more or less than I did before. He's like, then we're going. I'm like, okay, we're going. And, I drove there because he didn't know where we were going. And it was fine. Everything was fine. The waiter was fine. The food was delicious as shit. It was called the Naked Burger Bar, by the way. And it was freaking tasty. And then after that, we actually went to the Kitty Corner diner. It wasn't a diner. I thought it was a diner, but it was more like another like bar and grill restaurant. And we each got a drink over there. And it was fine. It was totally fine. But I gave my body an experience to say, hey, even sometimes when you feel ick and anxious about this thing or nervous or scared or whatever that feeling is, because it's all the fucking same at that point. It could even be excitement. It could just mean that you have to move through that thing. Now, I will also say that typically when my husband and I have a date night, we sometimes talk about hard shit. And we did have a couple of hard shit conversations yesterday. Nothing like earth-shattering or crazy or, something insane, right? But it was enough to make me uncomfortable. And that could be partly why I was anxious, because I was like, ooh, if these topics come up, then we have to talk about that. That's a possibility. And that could be why my body was like, I'm not really so sure about that. So there are those kinds of things too that can happen, that it's hard. So all this to say, you guys, that it's okay to do hard things. It's okay to be human. It's okay to not feel like you're always on it. It's okay to backslide, quote unquote. Whatever the fuck you want to define it to be. I don't really give a shit, whatever you want to call it. It's okay to show up and not get results all the time. It's okay to feel like nothing is working. It's okay to feel all these things. The only thing that I don't believe in is quitting. It doesn't mean you don't shift, pause, break, adjust, move differently, something. That's fine. We can do those things, but we don't stop. We don't stop trying to dig in to figure out these pieces. We just don't do it. We just don't do it. Okay. Now, that being said, if you're like, oh my gosh, this is me, I'm human, I need a human coach, I'm your coach. That's me. There is an application in the show notes. You can enroll, okay? If you're also like, man, I don't know if I want her yet. I always like to go to the store and try shit on before I buy, right? Because that's just who I am. And so there is an opportunity for you to have just a coaching day with me. That link is also going to be in the show notes. What that coaching day looks like, it's going to be an opportunity for us to go back and forth in conversation, that you can ask me any questions that you want to around training, mindset, nutrition. And it's an entire day from 9 to 5 Eastern time where you get to have me as your coach. You can kind of try me on, if you will, like a cool pair of pants or a really nice shirt. Okay. So if you're like, I'm not so sure about this, or I'm not so sure about coaching with you, this will give you an idea of how I coach, how I train, how I help you work through things. I don't know why I said train. Lordy be. How I help you work past things or work through things or dig deeper into things. So if you're like, man, there's this thing that I just can't get past, or like I keep getting stuck in this cycle and I can't figure it out why, that's some place we need to dig, right? And also, if you listen to Wednesday's podcast and you're thinking to yourself, fuck, that is me. I do not believe in myself. That's a great place to have a coaching day around, to start digging into why is this the case? And how do we start moving out of that place and into a place of, I believe that I'm made for this, because here's what I know. Not one fucking person listening to this podcast right now isn't made for it. Not one fucking person listening to this podcast right now doesn't deserve it. Not one person listening to this podcast right now, you are here for a reason. What is that reason? You listen for a reason. What is that reason? You are made for this. I believe in you.